I usually do short videos after my penny roll hunts, but my microphone died, and I end up doing 6 short videos until I realized the light was off. Thankfully, the it made it through the whole. I had to check the long version video, and thankfully, episode 314, the microphone worked for the whole video, and died right on the first video of the short, which I wouldn't have known because I was concentrating. So in episode 314, I talk a lot about one of the struggles people will have coin roll hunting, which is disbelieving what they think, because you're all gonna want to find, just like me, right? I don't walk. Only one person walked on water. He died for our sins, Jesus Christ. Everyone else is fallible, and we want to believe that every penny we find or that we think has an error is valuable. It's the question I get asked most often. How much is this worth? 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 It's not worth. Chances are the pennies you find are not worth anything. Matter of fact, they're not worth 1 cent, right? Google how much is the zinc worth inside of a zinc penny. It's worth less than half a cent, right? So it says 1 cent, but it's not worth. That's a lie. That's why I don't call them cents, because they're not worth cent. If it said half cent on what I call a penny, what we call a penny, that would be accurate. Maybe I would call it, oh, that's the half cent, because that's what it's worth. It's not worth 1 cent. It's called 1 cent, but it's not worth 1 cent. It's worth less than half of a cent. And they did that to trick you, to trick us. They called it 1 cent, the same thing that they called the penny that's worth over 3 cents, right? Copper, the copper value of a copper penny is worth over 3 cents. So they did that to trick us. And we believe it. As a matter of fact, I get people, that's not a penny. That's not called a penny. That's called a cent. Yeah, it's called a cent, but it's not worth. Why would you? I don't like acting like a fool. And to call something that's not worth a cent is foolish, because it's worth less than half of a cent. I'm a realist. I'm a facts person. And penny roll hunting and learning about coin errors is a look at all the research that's out there. There's thousands and thousands of pages, thousands and thousands of books written by extremely intelligent people about the errors. I'm still learning about it, right? Like, for example, I just got a comment from one of my members about, oh, don't forget to check the maker's marks. Maker's marks are little marks on a coin that identify the die, the actual die that struck it. Isn't that crazy? You kind of, most of the time you need a microscope to identify it. Anyway, I try to see it through the phone. I'm never able to see it though. And it's probably because it's not the error. So our brains, the way the human brain works is it wants to make sense of the world. It's that simple. And if you're watching videos where people are showing you coin errors all the time, you might think that they're more prevalent than they really are. And your brain might say that you could do it too, right? If someone else did it, you could do it. That's not necessarily the case. Not everybody could be a NASCAR driver. Not everybody could be an astronaut. And not everybody can be a coin expert. It takes so much time and practice to do it. If you're not willing to put it into it, you will not be able to do it. So it's like a puzzle. If I take out half the pieces of a puzzle, your brain will try to fill in the rest of it. And depending on how much of the puzzle is missing, your brain might inaccurately identify the puzzle image as something that's not true because your brain's trying to make sense of it. Same thing like the idea of us going to the moon. There's a million reasons why we believe we went to the moon. One is that one of the most obvious ones is that thousands of people in mission control witnessed it. Now, what they say is that what they actually witnessed, right? That what those thousands of people who in mission control, hundreds, whatever they were, witnessed was a delayed video, and they really didn't actually see something like that. Whatever they witnessed wasn't what was actually going on. So what they witnessed is what we witness, which is a faking of going to the moon. Okay. And the example I used in the video was, let's say, in the 1960s, I said, hey, I can get to Florida from New York. I didn't say New York in the video. I meant to say that because that's where I'm from. On 1 gallon of gas. I have this new engine that can get to Florida on a gallon of gas. And Mission Control is going to watch all my things, and they're gonna broadcast it. Okay. And I show you the gallon, and I show you the gas meter and all that, and I put the 1 gallon into the car, and there's one person who's sitting in the car with me, and he's gonna videotape it. But every like couple minutes, a sunspot happens, and we lose, or we're in bad area, we're going through the mountains, wherever, we're in a bad location, and it cuts out. And every time it cuts back on, you see a sign that says a different state we're going through. And they're like, oh, they're going through, and I show you the mileage, and the mileage says hundreds of miles. And then we get to Florida, and it says Florida, and they're like, yeah, we made 1 gallon of gas. But it was a lie. But the people in Mission Control, they actually believed it, because what they saw was what I showed them, was the signs of, but they were fake. I had or I got a tow truck that took me, there was like 2 people or 3, very few, limited amount of people that coordinated this lie. Now, 50 years later, 60 years later, a lot of people still believe I went to Florida on 1 gallon of gas. And they say, oh, how come? Well, we lost that technology. It was an engine that I made, and I forgot how I made it. How stupid and ridiculous does that sound? Extremely stupid and ridiculous. But there will be a lot of people who would believe that because they saw it, and there was 100 people who were in a studio, and they verified it. And you can't fool hundreds of people. They're actually working for my company, and they witnessed it. Oh, how about the times? There was the times when it blacked out. You would make stuff up, and that's what our brains do. Just like the puzzle. If you take out pieces of the puzzle, your brain will fill in the gaps. Your brain will make stuff up. Now, with all that said, I'm not saying we didn't go to the moon. But 100%, no one drove to Florida on 1 gallon of gas, ever. Well, maybe today they could if you changed it to EV or something. I mean, maybe it's, what I'm saying? But in the 60s, I'm saying, the technology just wasn't there to drive, that I know of, that anybody knows of, to go from New York to Florida, to drive 1,000 miles on 1 gallon of gas. There was never, to my knowledge, there was never that technology. And I'm not saying that we didn't, but my understanding is to go to the moon and back, the amount of fuel it would take is astronomical, especially in the 60s. And during episode 214, the two things that I brought up were um, there's very little gravity on the moon, but there's no wind, right? And the flag goes like this. And if something without gravity goes in one direction, it keeps going into right. That's why if you have to be tethered in outer space to the spaceship, or you'll just keep floating away, right? You can't reverse without some force reversing you. Like a frisbee, if you throw it, or a boomerang. If you throw a boomerang, it'll go do 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 do, and it'll come back. But if you try to do that in outer space on the moon, it's not coming back. There's nothing to bring it back. There's not enough gravity, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So a flag that's moving in one direction would keep going in that direction and would eventually wrap around the pole. Unless there was some force bringing it back, but you can see the flag goes like this in the pictures, which is impossible. I mean, I think it's impossible. But of course, we went to the moon, so somehow it was flapping back and forth, right? So, in episode 2014, what I was like, we have so many RC, what's they called? RC, the remote control things that we sent to Mars. If I look it up right now, there's a bunch of them. And we have images, and they're falling through the sky. And I didn't know how far away Mars was. I had to look it up. Mars is, oh my God, I think it's 140 million or 240 million miles. I don't want to misspeak. It's either 140 or 240. It's millions and millions and millions of miles away. Millions. The moon is 300,000, 290 something thousand miles away. 300,000. I mean, if everyone thinks it's a conspiracy theory, how come I don't have any? If anybody I would be convinced like this. I mean, could they fake it? I guess they could fake it. But I think today we would, if they were sending you would have to show all that stuff, right? Like the rocket going up and landing on the moon, and the little rover, or the rover coming down on something and landing. And then it could go to, supposing we have 7 or 8 SUV size lunar. Come on, you know how ridiculous that sounds? We have SUVs on the moon. I mean, we have lunar rovers. There's 7 or 8 of them supposed to be on the moon, that they were driving around on the moon. You know how ridiculous that is? That we have there's lunar. We have SUVs on the moon, but we couldn't get a remote control there to show. That would be the first thing they would have done, was, hey, we're not going to send anybody out there because but we didn't lose the technology to send little remote control vehicles. We send them 240,000 miles away, or 140,000, whatever it is, to Mars. We can't send one 300,000 miles away just to look at these SUV. Look at the flag. I want to see that flag waving. How come we never did that? Is it because there's nothing there? Of course, that's not why. There's got to be something there. So, penny roll hunting is kind of, you will believe you're seeing errors where you're not seeing errors. Your brain will want what you're finding to be valuable, and it's not. It's just the way it's just human nature. And, it's just how things are. You're going to want to believe things that aren't true. And that's something that I've learned on this channel, is that to be open to the fact that most of the things I find are not valuable, and that a lot of things that I think I understand, I don't. And it's very similar to other phenomenon or lies, right? Like, for example, the penny. It says 1 cent. That's a lie. It's not worth 1 cent. They told us that because they stopped putting the precious metal into it. It's not a precious metal, but it's a valuable metal. Copper is a valuable metal. Zinc is not even worth the amount of that they're putting into it. So it's a lie. Calling a zinc penny 1 cent a lie. It's not worth 1 cent. It's worth less than half of a cent. But most people will argue and say that's not a penny, it's a cent. It's not a cent. If it said half cent, it would be closer to true. But our brain wants to believe what we're told, especially from people who are in authority. We want to believe that people in authority are our friends and they're out to and they have our best interest in mind. So anyway, so I just want to make this short video. My channel is basically for penny roll hunting, but I find those conspiracy theory videos really, really fascinating. And I always thought about maybe doing one myself. And this was just an oddball video I'm adding into, especially with the fact that I messed up the shorts for today. So I just did this preemptive video spontaneously to throw in there as a fun. Let's see how many people get triggered in the comments below. I'll leave them there just to be funny, unless don't be vulgar though. All right, God bless, and I'll see you in episode 315.